Watch them move through the morning mist, and you'll see evolution in action. Every step is calculated, every decision weighed against the constant threat of death. Their eyes dart constantly between the canopy above, where leopards might drop like death from the sky, and the undergrowth below, where any shadow could conceal something with teeth and claws. They communicate through a complex series of gestures and vocalizations that represent the earliest stages of true language, sharing information about threats and opportunities with a sophistication that sets them apart from every other creature in their world. They don't yet know that fire can be tamed, that those mysterious flames that sometimes consume the grasslands can be captured and controlled. They don't yet understand that stones can be shaped into tools more sophisticated than simple hammers, that the very rocks beneath their feet hold the potential to reshape their relationship with the world. They don't yet realize that their greatest strength lies not in their individual capabilities, which are frankly unimpressive compared to the giants around them, but in their capacity to think and act as one coordinated unit. Right now, they are simply trying to survive another day in a world designed to kill them, using nothing but their wits and their unprecedented ability to cooperate in ways that transcend individual self-interest. But there are places in this dangerous landscape where the rules change slightly, where the constant threat of violence gives way to an uneasy truce. Watering holes, the great meeting grounds of the Pliocene, neutral territories where even the most bitter enemies must coexist in the face of universal need. Here, under an unspoken agreement born of mutual necessity, the most unlikely neighbors come to drink side by side. The massive elephant ancestors lower their trunks into the cool water while antelope species that will never see the modern world maintain nervous vigil at the edges. Saber-toothed cats lap delicately at the shallows while their potential prey drinks just yards away, all bound together by the most fundamental need of all, the need for water. These watering holes are more than just sources of life. They're theaters of evolution itself, stages where the grand drama of survival plays out in countless small acts of courage and cunning. Here, intelligence is tested against raw power. Strategy confronts instinct. And sometimes the most extraordinary encounters occur when desperation forces unlikely species into the same space at exactly the wrong moment. The seasonal rhythms of this ancient world are about to shift in ways that will test every creature's capacity for survival. The rains that have kept the forests green and the rivers flowing are beginning to fail. The watering holes that seemed inexhaustible just weeks ago are starting to shrink, their edges retreating to reveal cracked earth that tells the story of approaching crisis. And when resources become scarce in this landscape of giants, when the margin for error disappears entirely, that's when the real test begins. Our early human ancestors don't yet know it, but they're about to face an encounter that will echo through 3 million years of evolutionary history. An encounter with intelligence that rivals their own, packaged in a form they could never have imagined. An encounter with the giant saber-tusked boar that will force them to discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed. The stage is set. The players are in position. And evolution is about to witness one of its most crucial moments. The dry season arrived like death itself, slowly, then all at once. For 3 months, the sky had been a merciless expanse of blue, offering nothing but the cruel promise of another scorching day. The rivers that once carved silver pathways through the ancient landscape now lay as cracked scars in the earth, their memories held only in the polished stones that once knew the rush of water. Dawn painted the horizon in shades of amber and gold as a family of Metridiocoeris stirred beneath the sprawling canopy of a massive baobab tree. The matriarch, her hide scarred by decades of survival, lifted her enormous head and tasted the morning air. 500 pounds of muscle and bone, she was evolution's masterpiece of controlled aggression, and right now, she was desperately thirsty. Her tusks, each one a foot-long crescent of polished ivory, caught the early light as she surveyed her territory with eyes that had learned to read danger in every shadow. Behind her, the rest of her family began to stir. 3 juveniles whose tusks had barely begun to curve, and 2 massive males whose very presence seemed to make the earth tremble beneath their weight. This wasn't just a family, it was a tactical unit, honed by millions of years of survival in a world where only the smartest and strongest lived to see another sunrise. The matriarch's ears twitched in a pattern that looked random to any casual observer, but her family understood immediately. Within seconds, they had arranged themselves in a perfect search formation, each individual covering a specific sector as they began their morning hunt for water. These creatures possessed something remarkable, genuine tactical intelligence that rivaled anything else walking the earth, communication systems so sophisticated they bordered on language itself. They moved with purpose toward the ancient fig grove, where generations of their ancestors had learned that a small, spring-fed pool sometimes survived even the worst droughts. The knowledge passed down through behavioral inheritance, encoded not in genes but in the careful observation of elders, in the subtle lessons taught through demonstration and repetition. But as they approached through the morning mist, the matriarch's massive head froze. Her nostrils flared, processing scents that made every muscle in her body tense with recognition and alarm. The smell of sweat, of fear, of something desperately thirsty moving through their territory with the reckless determination of the dying. They were not alone. 300 yards away, hidden in the dappled shadows of the fig trees, another family was facing their own crisis of survival. 11 members of an early Homo Habilis band crouched in desperate counsel, their lean bodies racked by 3 days without water. Their leader, a grizzled male whose arms bore the scars of countless encounters with predators, gestured toward the distant pool with hands that trembled from dehydration. His name, if such things existed in their world, might have been remembered as the one who chose survival over safety, who made the decision that would echo through 3 million years of human evolution. But right now, he was simply a father watching his family die by degrees, calculating odds that seemed impossible to overcome. These early humans were caught in evolution's cruelest paradox. Their brains were large enough to understand their predicament with terrifying clarity. They knew exactly how much water they needed, exactly how long they could survive without it, exactly what the consequences would be if they couldn't find relief soon. But their technology was still too primitive to solve the problem. They had no containers to carry water, no tools sophisticated enough to dig new wells, no weapons capable of challenging the giants that controlled the best water sources. The youngest member of their group, a female barely past adolescence whose eyes held intelligence that seemed to burn with inner fire, made a sound that was part whimper, part plea. Her lips were cracked like dried earth, her skin hanging loose on bones that showed too clearly beneath. She would not survive another day without water. Neither would the 2 children who clung to their mothers with the desperate grip of those who somehow understand that death is approaching on silent feet. The leader's decision was made not through courage, but through the mathematical certainty of desperation. They would have to risk the water hole, regardless of what else might be using it. The alternative was certain death, slow, agonizing, witnessed by loved ones who could do nothing but watch. As the Homo Habilis band began their careful approach through the fig grove, stepping over roots that seemed to writhe like ancient serpents in the dim light, the giant boars detected them immediately. The matriarch's head swung toward the sound of bipedal footsteps, a gait unlike anything else in their world, distinctive and unmistakable. For a moment that seemed to stretch across millennia, 2 vastly different forms of intelligence assessed each other across the ancient landscape. Neither group was natural prey to the other, but neither were they allies. They were competitors for the same precious resource, and in this drought-stricken world, competition could mean death as surely as any predator's claws. The boars had obvious advantages: size, strength, and weapons that could disembowel a competitor with a single thrust of those gleaming tusks. Their hide was thick enough to turn aside most attacks, their bulk sufficient to simply trample anything that stood in their way. But the humans had something else, something that was still evolving, still raw and unformed, but undeniably present. They had the ability to think beyond the immediate moment, to plan and coordinate in ways that even these intelligent boars could not fully comprehend. More importantly, they had nothing left to lose. Desperation, it turns out, is one of evolution's most powerful catalysts. The matriarch took 3 deliberate steps toward the pool, her tusks lowered in a display that had sent countless competitors fleeing in terror. Behind her, the males spread out in a flanking formation that spoke to generations of tactical knowledge. This was their territory, their water, and they had never yielded it to anyone. But the humans did not flee. Instead, something extraordinary began to happen. The leader raised his hand, not in surrender, but in a gesture that would become the foundation of everything our species would eventually accomplish. He was thinking, calculating, processing information in ways that transcended individual survival. For the first time in Earth's history, 2 genuinely intelligent species stood face to face in a moment of mutual recognition, each seeing in the other something that demanded respect, if not friendship. The encounter that would reshape the future of human consciousness was about to begin. What happened next defied every instinct that 3 million years of evolution had carved into both species. The matriarch, her massive tusks gleaming like weapons forged by the earth itself, took another step toward the water. Her family followed, maintaining their tactical formation with precision that would have impressed modern military strategists. But the human leader did something unprecedented. Instead of fleeing or preparing to fight, he began to vocalize, not the screams of fear or aggression that typically preceded violence, but something else entirely. A series of sounds that carried rhythm, pattern, meaning. He was attempting communication with a creature that could kill him with a single thrust of its head. The matriarch paused, her ancient mind processing this unexpected behavior. In her 15 years of life, nothing had ever tried to talk to her rather than fight or flee. Her ears swiveled forward, analyzing the strange sounds, while her family waited for the signal to attack or withdraw. What followed was perhaps the most important conversation in human history, though it bore no resemblance to language as we know it. The human gestured toward the water, then toward his dying family members, his movements slow and deliberate. The matriarch watched, her intelligent eyes taking in every detail. She could smell the desperation rolling off these strange bipedal creatures, could see their obvious weakness and dehydration. But she could also sense something else, a quality of mind that resonated with her own intelligence. These weren't mindless beasts scrambling for survival. They were thinking, planning, communicating among themselves with a sophistication that demanded acknowledgement. The standoff stretched for minutes that felt like hours. The juvenile female human, barely conscious from thirst, began to collapse. Her companions caught her, their distress evident in every movement. It was then that the impossible happened. The matriarch stepped aside. Not retreating, not surrendering territory, but making a calculated decision that transcended pure survival instinct. She had recognized something in these creatures that spoke to the deep intelligence that had allowed her own species to thrive. Perhaps it was the way they cared for their weakest members. Perhaps it was their obvious capacity for complex thought. Or perhaps it was simply the universe's way of testing whether 2 intelligent species could share the same world. The humans approached the water with reverence bordering on religious awe. They drank carefully, sharing equally, never turning their backs on the massive boars who watched from mere yards away. The juvenile female was given the first sip, then the children, then the adults. A distribution system that spoke to social complexity the boars found fascinating. As the humans recovered their strength, something remarkable began to unfold. The leader started selecting stones from around the water's edge, testing their weight and shape with the careful attention of someone discovering tools for the first time. He wasn't just thinking about immediate survival. He was planning for the future, preparing for the next crisis, the next encounter. The matriarch watched this tool selection with intense interest. Her own species used simple implements, rocks for cracking nuts, sticks for digging, but nothing with the deliberate purposefulness she was witnessing. These creatures were thinking steps ahead, preparing for scenarios that hadn't yet occurred. When the humans finally departed, moving in a coordinated group toward the safety of distant trees, they carried with them more than just water and tools. They carried the knowledge that intelligence could triumph over brute force, that communication could bridge the gap between species, that cooperation might be more powerful than competition. The matriarch and her family remained by the waterhole long after the humans disappeared. Something had changed in that encounter, something that would ripple through generations of both species. The boars had learned that the strange bipedal creatures were not to be underestimated, while the humans had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. Over the following weeks and months, similar encounters occurred across the landscape. Drought forced interactions that would have been impossible under normal circumstances, and slowly, both species began to adapt. The humans developed more sophisticated communication systems, better coordination strategies, and most importantly, a growing confidence in their ability to think their way out of impossible situations. The giant boars, meanwhile, began to modify their own territorial behaviors. They learned to read human intentions, to distinguish between desperate families seeking water and potential threats to their young. Some developed an almost symbiotic relationship with human bands, sharing water sources in exchange for the humans' ability to spot aerial predators. But it was the humans who were truly transformed. Each crisis they survived through intelligence rather than strength reinforced their growing reliance on mental rather than physical capabilities. The feedback loop that would define our species had begun. Bigger brains leading to better problem solving, which led to greater survival success, which led to even bigger brains. The archaeological record can never capture these crucial moments. No fossil will ever preserve the first conversation between species. No stone tool will reveal the desperate thirst that drove innovation. No ancient campsite will show us the exact moment when cooperation became humanity's greatest strength. These encounters live on only in our genes, in the neural pathways that make us uniquely human, in the deep-seated knowledge that our minds are our most powerful weapons. 3 million years later, we are the inheritors of that first moment of recognition beside a shrinking waterhole. Every time we choose communication over conflict, cooperation over competition, we echo the decision made by a dying band of early humans who discovered that intelligence could triumph over impossible odds. The giant saber-tusked boars are gone now, vanished into the fossil record like so many of the titans that once ruled the earth. But their legacy lives on in us, in the knowledge that different forms of intelligence can recognize and respect each other, that survival sometimes depends not on defeating your competitors but on finding ways to coexist with them. We are the children of that ancient encounter, shaped by a moment when two species looked into each other's eyes and saw not enemies, but fellow travelers on the long journey of consciousness. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all, that intelligence, wherever it arises, recognizes itself in others, and in that recognition lies the hope for every species' survival. The waterhole is long dry now, buried under millions of years of sediment and stone. But the choices made their echo still in every human heart, reminding us that we are the descendants of those who chose to think, to communicate, to cooperate their way into tomorrow. If this journey through deep time has captured your imagination, if you felt the thrill of walking alongside our ancient ancestors and witnessing the moments that shaped human consciousness, Then subscribe to join us on more expeditions into the mysteries of our past. Every week, we'll uncover new stories from the archaeological record, explore the latest discoveries that are rewriting human history, and bring you face to face with the remarkable creatures and forgotten peoples who paved the way for everything we've become. Don't miss the next chapter in humanity's greatest story. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to ensure you never miss an adventure through time.